The Dallas Stars offseason has officially heated up. Ryan Suter has been bought out. The rights of Chris Tanev have been moved. And we just had the NHL draft. Plus, free agency begins today. We jump into all of it next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer, 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. We have a jammed-packed show for you today on Locked On Stars. So much has transpired over the last 4 days, including Ryan Suter has been bought out. That felt like a pipe dream. The rights of Chris Tanev have been moved. That was a gut punch to the Dallas Stars. We just concluded the NHL draft and free agency begins today. So many thoughts, so many opinions. I have so many questions and theories today that I'm going to share with you on this episode. So buckle up, Stars fans. We're going to get into all of it on this Monday. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So I plan to talk about these chronologically in the way they happened over this weekend. So we begin with Ryan Suter. And this was a move that many Stars fans have been discussing over the past few seasons. And frankly, from the moment Ryan Suter inked his contract with the Dallas Stars a few seasons ago. And look, I was completely wrong. I was shocked and stunned by this move from general manager Jim Nill, but it makes a ton of sense. And it was the right move to make for the Dallas Stars. Ryan Suter needed to be bought out. It opened up northwards of $2.8 million of cap space for the Stars this season. It'll be a bit more of a cap hit next season, but the Dallas Stars obviously need some wiggle room, especially with the departure now of Chris Tanev, which we'll get into a bit later on today's episode. I do have a theory that I want to throw out there. I think Jim Nill knew he was not going to be able to offer Chris Tanev what he warrants on the open market. And he decided it was now the best time to buy out Ryan Suter because they're going to have to go heavy in on a few guys in free agency to try to somehow rebuild this defensive core. Because right now under contract, you just have Miro, Heiskanen, and Lindell. Maybe this opens up the possibility of signing Harley to more of a long-term deal. You're also looking at probably having to bring back somebody like Yanni Hakanpää. And you're also looking at Alexander Petrovic as possibly being in your lineup on opening night here in the next few months. There are a lot of questions revolving around this decor, way more than a season ago. But Ryan Suter had to be bought out, and it was the right decision, even though it feels like maybe it would have been nice to have him right now because he is a right shot. And now you're looking at losing Tanev. You're looking at losing other possible pieces in free agency, but it opens up some cap space. And at the end of the day, I think that's what Dallas really, really needs. I thought it was going to be used as a way to possibly re-sign Tanev, but from what it looks like, there was just no possible way the Stars could offer Tanev what he warrants on the open market. And I also have to say this. I think the Stars learned from their mistake with Ryan Suter. And good organizations and all organizations will make mistakes at one point and another. But as the old cliche goes, do you learn from those mistakes? And I think the mistake they made with Ryan Suter lingered in the back of their mind when they were dealing with Tanev. because you don't want to offer a defenseman in his mid-30s a lengthy, short-term, even near long-term contract, because who knows what his play is going to look like down the line. And unfortunately, Ryan Suter is a casualty in this conversation. I thought the money would be used to keep Tanev, but obviously Nil and company were unable to even get remotely in the same region from what it sounds like from the reports, where Tanev is looking for possibly up to 5 to 6 years on his next contract, which is just incredible, frankly, and good for him. He deserves it. Number one, he definitely deserves it, but the Stars just cannot offer him that sort of deal. And look, I've always been a lot kinder to Ryan Suter in my time here. I think he's still a very valuable player and he can give you good minutes. And I think he thrived in the role he did here over the past season. And that was on a third pairing role. He played alongside Lindell, Niels Lundqvist or Tanev, where he's not taking on those heavy minutes. He's not playing against the other team's top line. And I thought he was still a very productive player for the Stars, especially in the playoffs, except the Edmonton series. But there were a lot of no-shows in that series that we've obviously documented quite well here on Locked On Stars. So Ryan Suter has been bought out. It opens up $2.8 million of cap space for this season. There will be a bit of a cap hit next year. And Ryan Suter has now been bought out by 2 teams over the last, 6 years. And he's going to be getting paid from Minnesota and Dallas to not pay for him. And I think a team out there will definitely give him a shot. Anybody can use a right shot defenseman that has a ton of experience, and you can basically plug and play. But it wasn't the right situation at this point in time for the Dallas Stars. And it looks like they're basically trying to rebuild now this decor. And the unfortunate news of Chris Tanev now being moved is they don't really have a backup plan in place. Who knows what their backup plan is? I'm sure there is one for general manager Jim Nill. It's probably going to have to be free agency. And there are a ton of names out there that the Stars were probably priced out on, that they can probably go in on heavy and possibly sign. Matt Roy is a really, really interesting defenseman. Of course, played with the Kings this past season. That is a player that originally you thought you were going to be priced out on. He's somebody you can take a look at. Brett Pesce, who many of you know I'm high on. John Klingberg is another interesting name I want to throw in the mix, because Klingberg is not the player he once was. He's declined rapidly. Frankly, he's not a very good player. He's coming off a season-ending hip surgery now that he suffered in Toronto this last season. But look, Dallas doesn't have a lot of options, and they can't be too picky now in this process. They need bodies, and they need bodies that can play. Klingberg has obviously had some really good seasons in Dallas. Maybe you reunite a 1-year prove-it deal. He comes in, plays on your third pair, and maybe he gets elevated as the season goes along if he starts to find his game again. We all know he's excellent offensively. His defensive game has really declined, but as I mentioned, Dallas doesn't have a lot of options. You're also putting a lot of weight on someone like Liam Bichsel. Do the Stars really believe he's almost NHL ready where he can slot into the lineup on day one? I don't know. It's a possibility. They must feel pretty comfortable with buying out Ryan Suter. And as I mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to this, my theory is Jim Nill knew he wasn't going to be able to re-sign Tanev, and there are some really quality players on the market, which I think triggered the Ryan Suter buyout. So they have some more money to go after some premier talent to try to fill the void of Chris Tanev, because you're not going to fill him with one player. It's going to have to be aggregate. They're going to need multiple bodies to step up and try to fill a role that Chris Tanev provided. So I think over the weekend into the draft, I think before the draft, the Stars knew there's just no possible way they're going to re-sign Tanev. Let's buy out Suter. We got some extra cash. We have some extra wiggle room to go after some big names to try to fill in on this roster. And hopefully Bixel is ready to step up and play at the NHL level on an everyday basis. There are a lot of questions revolving around this decor now. How they're going to fill the void of the possible loss of Tanev and others, I don't know. But look, I trust in Jim Nill, number one. And I also have to say, I think great players like Tanev really force your hand. And maybe the Ryan Suter buyout was to try to trigger the re-signing of Chris Tanev. Maybe they thought they could reach a better number if they had some extra cash for Tanev, but it looks like it wasn't going to be the case. So now you're trying to find bodies on the open market that you can bring in, or you're hoping for the step up of some younger players like Nils Lundkvist. He may garner a huge role next season, and Pete DeBoer doesn't really have any other options. He may be forced to play Nils Lundkvist. So there is a lot of questions revolving around this decor. But at the end of the day, it was the right decision to buy out Ryan Suter. The Stars need to move in a different direction. And I will say this, just because I mentioned it hurts maybe to some degree because Tanev left. It was the right decision. And Ryan Suter is not somebody you should be hanging your hat on at 38 years old, 39, whatever. I think he's 39 years old on the benefit of your decor. They need to start building from within once again. And now they have to go out on the open market and try to fill the void of a loss like Chris Tanev. So let's get into some more Chris Tanev talk in general and what transpired over the weekend with him, with his rights being traded to Toronto, because I have plenty of thoughts on that matter as well. And we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Get in on the action this summer. You have games every single day. You even can bet on golf. You have the big major coming up here in the next couple of weeks. You have the British Open. Make some money with FanDuel. All customers get a boost or a bonus. So head over to FanDuel once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So on Saturday evening, the Dallas Stars have traded Chris Tanev, the rights of Chris Tanev, I should say, to Toronto for Max Ellis. He was with the Toronto Marlies the past couple of seasons, and a 2026 seventh round pick. And if you heard my quick thoughts on the situation, obviously this really stings because Tanev was the number one priority for the Dallas Stars this offseason. But as reports continue to come out, it just does not look like the Stars and Chris Tanev were in the same atmosphere. There were reports that he could get 6+ years. And Chris Tanev was a fantastic fit here in Dallas and a fantastic player. But upwards of 5 years for a 35-year-old defenseman, he'll turn 35 next season, is pretty risky, and he'll probably get a bit more money, whether that's from Toronto or from another team somewhere else. Dallas just had to, frankly, eat it, accept it, and they were able to at least get something for him, which was the good news. They get a player and they get a draft pick here in the next couple of years. Whether that turns out to be anything is beside the point. They got something for Chris Tanev because the cards were just not aligning. And he mentioned it multiple times. There was a report just it was 2 weeks ago where Jim Nill said the math is just not mathing here when it came to looking at re-signing Tanev or Duchesne. On the positive side, it looks like Duchesne and the Stars will reunite. And obviously, I would rather have Chris Tanev, but Duchesne is still a good player. You can probably bring him back on a pretty team-friendly deal, sign him maybe 2 to 3 years max, and you can get some productivity out of him. Obviously, 6 points in the postseason cannot happen again. That was not a good postseason for Matt Duchesne, but we also can't gloss over the fact that he was really beneficial for the Stars, for Tyler Seguin, Mason Marchment, and the forward group in general. So hopefully he continues to progress next season, and he's a good veteran to have in the locker room, even though I would still rather have Chris Tanev than Matt Duchesne. I think this can be a positive in a few ways, because I'm going to look at the bright side. You just have to move on now from Tanev, because this was always a possibility, whether we wanted to believe it or not. And I predicted the Stars were going to get Duchesne and Tanev back, but it just was not in the cards. And with the cap the way it is, you just can't shell out money to everybody that walks in your door like Toronto does for the most part. Tanev is not worth what Toronto thinks he is worth to the Dallas Stars. He's not worth what the Calgary Flames may see in Tanev than the Dallas Stars, right? Players are worth different amounts, different terms to each team, to each respective team. And currently in Dallas, Chris Tanev cannot get a even 5-year deal, $5.5 million dollars to stay. It just doesn't make sense for what the Stars are trying to do in a window of opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. And now they have to find a way to replace him. But to get back to the positive side of things, number one, I think they learned their mistake from Ryan Suter. As I mentioned earlier, you can't make that same mistake again and offer a long-term deal to a defenseman in his mid-30s. And Tanev is a fantastic player, but look, the type of style Tanev plays, he's physical, he blocks a lot of shots, he's going to get banged up, and you don't want to be on the hook for whatever it is, $5.5, $6 million when he's 38 and he's not in your lineup every day. He's not as dependable, and maybe he's worth that in Toronto. And by all means, he deserves it. Go and get your money, Chris Tanev, but it just wasn't going to happen from the Stars' perspective. Number two, and I alluded to this earlier, the Stars are now forced to start building from within. Can you start developing defensemen that can have an impact for you at the NHL level? They're going to have to use the free agency market to get someone in here to at least fill part of the void that Chris Tanev leaves. But you're going to have to start drafting and developing prospects that can make an impact for you on the back end. Because right now it's Bixel and maybe some others are ready to make the step up. Hopefully Niels Lundqvist pans out, but you can't bank on that at this point, especially when you're looking at this window of opportunity with Jamie Benn, who's on the hook for one more year, Tyler Seguin in the next 3 years, and maybe you don't get your cup here in the next 5-year window. But then White Johnston, Stankoven, Bork, they're all going to be up for contract, right? You have a lot of decisions and questions you're going to have to answer in the next few seasons. And usually teams that find a way to win have really good players on cheap deals. And the Stars had some of that last year with Johnston and Stankoven. You just can't hand out everybody and their mother, a lot of money in order to get the job done. So I think it forces the Stars in the front office to start finding ways to build from within and not hang your hat on Chris Tanev being, so to speak, the savior of the decor. he was a perfect fit, and he was exactly what the Dallas Stars needed. But at the same time, I don't think Dallas should have to hang their hat on bringing back Chris Tanev to have an effective decor, because now that he leaves, I don't think it's going to be very good at first glance. Miro's obviously going to be great. Harley made a huge step last season. Lindell had a nice bounce back year. But after that, like, what else do you have? Like, are you going to have effective everyday NHL players, or is it going to be a rotating door of Niels Lundqvist, Hakanpää, possibly Petrovic? It doesn't seem like that is a very valuable approach to the defense heading into next season. And frankly, I don't think the offseason has gone to plan for the Dallas Stars up to this point. They can certainly right the ship here in the next few days in free agency. And look, I don't blame the Stars for making any of these moves at the same time. I think getting something in return for Chris Tanev was the right move. They weren't able to offer him what he warranted. Buying out Ryan Suter was the right move. But hindsight is 2020, and I can give a ton of you out there, a ton of you Stars fans, some credit about Ryan Suter and some others. This was the day we were all hoping would not happen, where the Stars are in a really, really tough situation now, and they're going to have to fork up some money here in free agency to find a way to build some sort of effective back end. Look, the forwards are going to be fine up front. I think they're going to be fine 1 through 9. They have a lot of good talent. They have a lot of young talent. Not a whole lot of questions revolving around the top 9, or really all 12 to 13 forwards. It's the back end that raises a lot of red flags. And we're going to see what they can do here in the next couple of days. We'll get a better idea of what the decor is going to look like for opening night. But you only have Miro and Lindell currently under contract. They're going to find a way to get Harley done. So that's one more guy you can add to the mix. I thought you were going to be able to let someone like Hakanpää walk in the offseason, but that doesn't look like the case at this point in time. You're probably going to have to bring him back, and then you can go after maybe one of the big fish here in free agency, whether that's Shea, Roy, you even have Pesce. Klingberg is interesting. Braden, don't want to forget Montour from Florida. He's going to be 30 years old. He's an intriguing player too. Would love to see him in a Stars uniform. Frankly, I could go through a whole list that I would be comfortable with the Stars having here in Dallas. They can't frankly go wrong in a lot of ways. They just need bodies at this point. So I'm curious to what's going to happen here in the next couple of days. But having to move on from Chris Tanev was definitely a kick in the groin for multiple reasons. You just wanted him to stay in Dallas, and you wanted the Stars to find a way to keep him here. But it looks like there was no possible way the Stars could offer anywhere near the amount or term that he was looking for. So there is my position on Chris Tanev. And of course, the Stars decor in general. It's going to be a very, very interesting next couple of weeks. Okay, we have to talk about the NHL draft, because that also happened over the weekend. The Dallas Stars took Emil Hemming at the 29th overall pick in the first round. And they had a few late round selections as well to wrap up this weekend. So let's discuss the NHL draft and some more in just a moment. With the 29th pick in the 2024 NHL draft, the Dallas Stars select Emil Hemming from Finland, who played for TPS in the highest league in Sweden, a power forward right wing that has a powerful shot and looks to have the ceiling of a potential middle six to top six forward in the National Hockey League. I also will state this: with EJ Emery on the board at 29 for the Dallas Stars, he went a pick after New York, which frankly makes a ton of sense. The assistant coach for the U.S. National Development Program said his game mirrors Keandre Miller, who was also in the national program, and he finds himself now in New York with Keandre Miller. So that certainly stung as well with the departure of Chris Tanev, because the Stars could have got a shutdown defenseman in EJ Emery. His game is fantastic. He doesn't have a ton of offensive skills right now, but he is your stout defender packaged into one body. He's big, he's physical, and boy, is his play really, really fun to watch. So that was unfortunate. The Stars passed on him, but Emil Hemming made a ton of sense. He, of course, played under Jari Lehtinen, who's the general manager of the Finnish national team. So it made a ton of sense, and his upside still looks pretty promising. He played for TPS, which was a pretty decent team in the top league in Sweden. He played more of a fourth-line checking role, so there still is some room for improvement offensively. He'll probably need 2 to 3 years is what it looks like of development before he's ready to play some NHL games. I know ESPN projected him to have as 80% to play over or at least 200 games in the NHL. So still a really, really nice pick, I believe, for the Dallas Stars. The Elite Prospects draft guide has his game shades of Nick Paul, which is a player the Stars drafted not too long ago. He was just 17 years of age, a borderline high-end shooter with a power forward flair, possesses handling skill, and a projectable two-way game through a strong work ethic. That's his elevator pitch. Looking for a well-rounded power forward with translatable tools in the second half of the first round, Emil Hemming has got you covered. Also, it's a pretty decent value pick. NHL Central Scouting had him ranked as a number 6 European skater on their list. So to find him at 29 still looks like a really, really good value for the Dallas Stars. And we'll see how his game transpires over the next few seasons. But I think Hemming was a good pick at 29. I think I would have rather had Emery. I really would. They need right shot defensemen, and he was sitting right there. A lot of scouts out there had him projected somewhere in the top 20. You really didn't think he was even going to get to you. But, man, they had an option to pull the trigger, and they went with Hemming. And, look, I'm not going to doubt the Stars either. They've hit on a lot of their late-round first picks, and I'll never doubt a Finn either. I love the way they play, a two-way game, and they've obviously stuck to their gut on this one. And I will give them credit there. I think the Stars, over the last few seasons with their draft process and their approach, just they stick to their gut. They find a player, they do their due diligence, and they stick with them, and they don't stray from that when the pressure really gets hot. Obviously, there are some can't miss prospects at certain points where maybe you just pull the trigger, but the Stars believe in Hemming, and they went with Hemming with their first pick here in the 2024 NHL draft. I think he still has a really nice upside. We'll see how that transpires in the next couple of seasons. They went with another Finn in the 5th round, 158th overall, Mohinen. He's 6'5", 195 pounds. He's a big boy. Appeared in 27 regular games for Kalpa Junior. That's in the Finland Junior League. He registered 11 points and 43 penalty minutes in those 27 games. So Mohinen, another big Finnish defenseman. The Stars certainly have a type, and they went with a few Finnish players in their first 2 picks to add to the Finnish Mafia. They rounded out the draft 222nd overall. They took William Samuelson, who posted 44 points in 50 regular season games in Sweden. So that's how they round out the 2024 NHL draft. Man, so much went on over the last 4 days. And now the next phase of the offseason begins. Free agency begins at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time on this Monday, July 1st. So be on the lookout for the Dallas Stars to be very, very active here in the next couple of days. They got to find a way to build the back end back up so they can frankly be a Stanley Cup contender into next season, because right now, look, I don't quite see it with what they have on the back end. They're going to have to fill some holes and see if they can do some parking lot repairs, so to speak, and get this team back up to speed. But hey, and Jim Nill, we'll trust the back-to-back general manager of the year in the National Hockey League to get it done. So enjoy your Monday. Have a great rest of your day and plenty of discussions moving on in the next few weeks. So we'll certainly be here for you every single day. Shout out to all you everydayers out there. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Never miss an episode. It's really about to start ramping up. So be sure to jump on board on Locked On Stars. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.